All right, everyone. We're on episode 26 of the Conquer the Mind podcast. I appreciate all the new viewers, subscribers. We've been having some really good episodes. So we're going to really continue the trend on this one with honestly a friend of mine, a mentor of mine with Dave Grippi, who I've grown up with in the dry cleaning industry. And he's literally knows the dry cleaning industry better than anyone. So I'm super excited to dive into this episode. We were just in Phoenix at the International Franchise Association, but Dave has been in operation since 2018 with Lapels Cleaners, which has later turned into Clean Brands over the last couple of years. So maybe we'll dive into that. Dave is a third generation in the dry cleaning space of independent business owners. So we're going to really kind of dive into that relationship today. So Dave, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, no, Josh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on this call. I've watched many of these episodes and I got some big shoes to fill. You've had some great people on and looking forward to sharing any insight I can be helpful with for those out there.
Awesome. I'm excited. And it looks like you're at the standing desk right now.
I am, yes. I love the
Yeah.
standing desk. It's definitely helped.
I think it must be a Clean Brands thing. I think you and my father are the only ones that have had that going, but I love to see that. I think it makes me jealous watching you guys as I'm sitting down. I'm gonna need to start incorporating something like that. But
Yeah.
basically, Dave, as I mentioned, you grew up kind of third generation as independent business owners in the dry cleaning space. So I think it'd be helpful on today's episode to really dive into your background with that. And then we can kind of compare that to how you've been in franchising for a while now and kind of the similarities, the differences, and then also like your operational support and, how a new franchise owner, when they do sign that franchise agreement, what those kind of steps look like. So I think that'll kind of be the goals, I think, of the podcast. But as people know, with these unscripted conversations, you really never know where they're going to go. But
Yeah.
start off, Dave, with kind of like you just growing up in the dry cleaning industry. What did that even like look like? I know you're third generation in the dry cleaning industry. Like, what was kind of life growing up for you, high school, college, as you're kind of like looking and seeing this as you're growing up?
Yeah, no, it's definitely changed through the years. So my grandfather came over from Italy. He opened basically as a tailor, opened his own dry cleaner in Quincy, Massachusetts, Beacon Cleaners, where he was the tailor and got into doing cleaning as well.
Mm.
My father joined him after his deployment in Vietnam, and the two of them ran that business for many years. So when I was little, they always say, born in a hamper. My playpen as a kid was a hamper. My father would put me in a hamper and he'd wheel me around the store as he was doing different tasks within the store. And that was my playpen as I was a kid. And then as I got older and could walk around, I got to do little tasks. I think my first job was sorting out hangers. And anyone who's in the dry cleaning business, or even just think about your closet at home, when you have a bunch of hangers in there, you're trying to sort them out, they got all tangled up in the knot. Well, mine would be in a huge hamper and there would be thousands of hangers sitting in there and I would have to put them on different racks. That was like my first job. I think I was like 6 or 7 when I was doing that. And from there, just kind of grew up in the business. And then my grandfather got really sick and they ended up selling the business when I was young. I was probably around 6 or 7 when they sold the business. And then my father went to work for a company, Dependable Cleaners, very large third generation, actually fourth generation company here in the Boston market, where my dad worked for 39 years. And I decided to kind of stay on working with him and working in that company. And I probably worked there for the 10 years straight,
Yeah.
learning every bit of the industry as I went through. So being
Wow.
at a young age, it was an advantage because I got really good at doing certain jobs. I was a pant presser for a while. I pressed shirts for a while. I did, driving. I did delivery. So all those little jobs I worked throughout the time there to really hone in on those skill sets, as I move forward. So it definitely helped in learning the business.
Yeah.
Also attended a dry cleaning school as well. It was a 4-week course back then, Dry Cleaning Laundry Institute. So I was a graduate of that class as well. So a lot of the in-depth operations production of the dry cleaning business.
Dry cleaning in school sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah, well, you got to be a dry cleaning nerd to really enjoy the school, which I was, going to that school was kind of eye opening for me because I had learned so much. By this time I was probably in my 20s when I went to that school, so I really had learned a lot about the business, and it kind of just honed in on the skill set I had, and then procedures that I was learning, and really showed me where the businesses can go.
Hmm.
And that was the exciting, as growing up in the business where you know you would just stand in the store and just process the work, and that was it. There wasn't anything about marketing or overall operations or labor cost, or how are we going to do delivery or POS systems. Like, that didn't
Yeah.
exist back then. So really growing up in the business and watching that evolve has been fascinating.
Oh, that's really interesting, Dave. And what about your family originally getting into the dry cleaning business? What was it about that industry that made them want to start a business in that industry? Was it kind of just like they were forced into that industry, or what was it about the dry cleaning industry specifically that got them originally engaged with that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think because my grandfather was a tailor at trade, and
Okay.
just being a tailor, you really needed something else to go with that. You couldn't make a living just doing tailoring.
Mm.
And his family, he had a brother and a sister that were also there with him as well, and they decided, hey, let's give this dry cleaning a shot. And back
Mm.
then, they just kind of figured it out on their own, trial and error. What works, what doesn't work, and that's how they kind of got started back then. There weren't any systems in place. It was just, okay, let's start doing this and see how we do. And they have a store. They had a great operation, and they were in business for, trying to think, that like probably about 20 years before they actually sold to this other company.
Hmm. Wow, that's really interesting. It sounds like, it sounds like you're kind of like father walking in like your family's footsteps, like staying in the same industry. Was that something like you always did like consciously with like you wanted to stay in that industry and kind of like learn it from your father, or like what was that kind of like?
Yeah, I think for me, I really enjoyed working with my dad, and I did enjoy
Yeah.
the business. It was something it's a business that's different every day. There's a new challenge every day, and just being part of it. And as I grew into the business and started managing and training and working with others, I
Mm.
really liked the aspect of the coaching and training and developing people within the staff for next
Yeah.
level. And I think that's where I kind of got my passion of the business, is really showing others the benefits of dry cleaning, the business itself.
Mm.
And that's really kind of what kind of kept me in the business. I did try to get out a couple of times, but it always seems like there was another curveball that brought me back into the business.
Well, that's a good transition. What was like kind of the curveball like that brought you originally to Lapels Cleaners, and that transition from dependable and kind of watching? It sounds like you're kind of doing the ins and outs of all aspects of that business, kind of learning every different aspect, and then transitioning to a franchise model in 2018.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. Between dependable, there's a couple other things. I did try to get out a couple times, and I was actually doing a sales job for a while, and not really inside the business as much.
Mm.
And I got a phone call from a vendor who does like route development, and he's like, "Hey, listen, I'm trying to get someone on production side. I need some help. I got a company that needs help with training." And I said,
Mm.
I'm not sure if I really want to do that yet. I'm kind of okay where I am. He said, listen, just have a meeting. I said, okay, who is it? He says, Lapels Dry Cleaning. It's Kevin Dubois. I said, okay, I've heard of the business, hadn't heard of Kevin. I said, okay, I'll have a lunch. So I met Kevin, your dad, for lunch. And 3.5 hours later, we realized that what the skill level I had, what Kevin was looking to do to grow Lapels, there really was an opportunity for the two of us to start working together. So turned around, I said, you know what? Let's do this. I'll come back into the business, and came back in as an operations director for Kevin at that time with just Lapels. And back then, they had a lot of satellite stores, and were really looking to build this hub and spoke plant and satellites.
Mm.
So it was a good opportunity for someone to come in with operations to help develop the plan, the operations guide, and like plant layouts and equipment and what's needed to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I jumped on board and never looked back.
That's fascinating. I always find it really interesting, people that are working as part of a franchise, because it's your thought process is very similar to like a candidate's thought process as they're like evaluating different franchise opportunities. You were evaluating different opportunities and then figuring out kind of like your reasoning for like aligning with Lapels Cleaners. I think that would be pretty interesting as you're kind of you go to lunch, you start to align your strengths, your weaknesses with the other members of the organization. Then what were kind of like those initial steps like after you start to get started? Were you starting to figure out like what were those like initial reactions to the world of franchising as you're starting those first couple months?
Yeah, no, so that was interesting. I have to say that was probably my biggest learning curve was the
Okay.
franchise piece of the business and the psychology that goes behind the franchise part of the business. But as I realized, and what I found out I enjoyed is that, meeting new owners coming into a system that, I mean, obviously you're going to franchising because you want to own a business. You might necessarily be an expert at that business. That's the whole point of franchising. So
Mm,
now, we had these tools in place to be able to bring someone off the streets who doesn't know how to press a pair of pants or even know what a boiler looks like, and
yeah.
what do I do? And so to have those systems in place to be able to coach and train not so much the owner but the staff that they have behind them on the operations of the business, and having a blueprint for them to follow to be successful. I think that's where I really got excited about that, is realizing all the past experience I've had, all the coaching and development and training I've done over the years really fit into the franchise model perfectly. Because it's the same system. Is if you have a system in place and you have the blueprint for them to follow for
Yeah.
success, it makes that onboarding so much easier. And I think back to like my grandfather, and he started his business. He didn't have an operations guide. He was just kind of figuring out as he went through the process.
Mm,
And today that same person walks in the door and you're handed a fully built operation that you can step into and run
yeah.
successfully from day one without knowing the business. And I
Oh,
think that's where I got excited about the alignment between Lapels and the operations piece that I knew, and putting
mm.
them together to really make that foundation.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful when really that's what you see out of like the best franchise. I feel like, in my opinion, when you take the best of the industry experience and then you combine that with the franchise experience and then surrounding yourself with people in that industry with the right mentors. Because, my father and I were just walking around at the franchise show in Miami, and that's filled with emerging brands, a lot of people in similar
Mhm.
industries. Even so, there were a few new industries that I was surprised, but a lot of like overly saturated industries. And, that's just like the big learning curve. You talk to them and, they're at their first couple franchise shows and they're like, we're going to sell 10 franchises out of this. And, those franchise shows it's tough to kind of build a ton of momentum out of those, but, you ask them certain questions about what their kind of next steps are with growth, brokers, whatever it may be. And, it's just like totally different to have that business model and turn it into a franchise model. So I think I'd love to kind of break down those differences as you were in part of an independent business model. And now you've kind of seen firsthand the franchise business model and worked firsthand with probably hundreds of franchise owners at this point and really been like boots on the ground with those people. But a lot of people with business ownership, when they're considering franchising or should I just do it myself, for example, or really a lot of like the battle of independent business owner versus franchising. One of the things I hear from like going the independent business model is that, you don't have to report to anyone. You can do whatever you want, kind of like that autonomy. What are your like thoughts on like the autonomy of being an independent business owner, and like, do you have that in franchising, or, are you still like reporting to corporate in a franchise, or, because that's what everyone's trying to escape, corporate America.
Yeah, I think you can't. Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it kind of two different ways. I mean, if you're just an independent person sitting out there in business, you're still doing a lot of things, trying to figure a lot of things on your own. What works?
Mhm.
What's the best practice? Does this work? Do I email someone? Do I mail someone? Like, what are the best ways to grow my business moving forward? And I think those are some of the struggles, when I was with an independent dry cleaner. Those are some of the challenges we had, is that we did, there's a lot of trial and error. Like, we're not sure if this is going to work. Let's do this. Let's try that. And we had no data, no proof. We had no way of looking at sales on a larger scale, because we were on our own. We were just sitting there in our own world. And you transition over now to like the franchising world. Yeah, there's reporting. Yeah, there's that, but the support that's over you. And again, you're an independent owner. You own your business. You're independent. It's your business. But now you have this umbrella above you that can help you with a marketing strategy, help you with an operation strategy, help you with legal if you need that, with marketing. We have all these tools underneath that you don't have to worry about. So now, independent, you're trying to figure out, oh, I got to run my website. Oh my God, my social media. Oh, I forgot to do this. Oh, I have to send an email reminder here. You're all over the place. Now you can focus as a franchise, focus on growing your business. And that's, we really try to have our franchisees work on growing their business. I don't want them in the back pressing pants. That doesn't help them. I want them out there on the streets. I want them talking to customers, attending meetings, and us in the background. We have that marketing piece that's going out automatic for you. We have the operations guy that's going to help you with onboarding new employees and training. You have support. We have 2 business coaches that are also in the business as well too. And both those business coaches also have operations and dry cleaning experience. One's a 3rd generation dry cleaner as well. And another one was a successful business over in the Texas market that was in business for 30 years. So those 2 as well help with that business owner, that they don't have to worry about all of the day-to-day as much as if you were just in your own town by yourself trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And those franchise business coaches are definitely something I think I want to touch upon. And I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily understand that when you even do make that investment into a franchise, it's not like, oh, you're on an island at that point. And it's like, what are you going to do with it? Like, can you explain like what is a franchise business coach? What are they actually doing when someone, gets started?
Yeah. So we have a great onboarding process. So again, someone new coming into a franchise, you might not be familiar on how to set up an LLC. What do I need for permits? What do I need for regulations? What do I like? You're not aware of all that. So they come into what we call our Clean Start program, and we're on a call with a new franchisee every single week. We set up a day and a time that we're available. Myself, our project manager, and the business coaches are available, and we help them through every step of the way, from the time they sign on to the time they walk into their store. And it doesn't stop there. From the time they walk in the store, their business coach is with them on day 1. They take over the business. We're with them day 1, and we're with them the entire week, coaching and training, not so much to onboard the franchise, the new owner, but to help with the staff that's there, whether it's an existing staff or a new staff, and help onboard that staff. So, a new owner coming in, if they have a new presser or a new production person in, they're not familiar with that job and how they're going to train that person. So you get the support from the business coach. And then from that point on, it's ongoing. We kind of will look at, deep dives on the business every month. How are we doing financially? Where are we spending our money? And we have benchmarks for, what should your cost of goods look like? What should your labor look like? What should your production look like? So we have all those benchmarks to be able to then coach and train the owners to be more successful based on, where they're standing today. So all those benchmark numbers. So yes, reporting, you have to, but that is a benefit to you as a franchise owner and to the network, because we're allowed to help get everyone to that next level.
That's really interesting. As someone is like potentially thinking about franchising, and like we're talking about like the independent model and franchising, like kind of having autonomy in one model versus having like business coaches, what are like, the personality types of a candidate thinking about franchising that you've seen like be most successful in terms of like that dynamic with the business coach? Like, is there a certain type of person that's like, they don't like being told what to do at all? Like they're not going to follow a playbook. They're not going to follow instructions, where it's like franchising probably is not the direction for you. Whereas, these business coaches are, is their role to support you, or are they going to like, like hold your hand, or are they there to like nag you, or like what's kind of like that dynamic look like?
Yeah, I wish we had the perfect person. There's always going to be those different personalities, and there's always going to be this pull and kick back and forth. What what we try to do with the business coaches and even myself is when we have the candidate come in, we do have a disc profile on those candidates. So we try to understand their personalities a little bit on how we can train them. And then, we kind of try to cater to that. Obviously, someone who, again, to those who might not be familiar with this, but a high D, someone who is very demanding and doesn't really look at the fine print. They're just all on. They'll be great at growing a business, but they might not be great at, following, hey, this is the system that we will help you be successful. Like, oh no, I just going to do it this way. So we have to really, we kind of look at the coaches and we say, okay, this is the way we kind of have to look at this particular franchisee based on, the personality. Someone who is, very outgoing, a friendly person. Those are the type of franchisees are a little bit easier to train, just based on they're eager to please and they want to go out there and grow their business, and they have a good relationship with staff and they like to talk to people. So it's always a challenge when you're training and onboarding to really have them fully buy in. But in the end, as we go through the process, because a new franchisee that comes in, we're either with them on site or we're on a call every week. So we're constantly having that communication. We're constantly having that follow-up. How do we do this week? Where did we hit our marks that we talked about last week? And we talked about these 3 goals. How did we do on that? So I think being able to have those check-ins every week kind of resets the franchisee owner to really see the value of having the blueprint and the systems to move forward.
Yeah, it really kind of defines the franchising model of being business by yourself, not for yourself. Like you have your own business model, but you're still on weekly calls with people doing the exact same thing with the industry experience, with the franchise experience as well, which is so vital. And, on weekly calls, I think is really powerful where like, just the idea of mentorship, learning from other people that are doing the same thing, people in different markets, what are they seeing? Having those benchmarks in place. I think that's just really powerful. And kind of just given like your operational background, you've seen kind of the independent model and the franchise model, and you kind of alluded to earlier, like the hub and spokes model. What are like the difference, like from an operational perspective, do you feel like of that franchise model compared to like the independent business model?
Yeah, I think with the independent, a lot of them are, it's one store. They're just, working at the counter, waiting on customers that have done for years. And then when you get into like the franchise model with the hub and spoke, you have your hub, you have your plant, and then
Yeah.
to add these additional spokes, what's nice about that is that being in our model, we have the model and the systems in place to help you grow to those other spokes. We don't, one store operation is great, but you add one, one other store or 2 stores, it just changes the dynamics of the business, profitability. So it really helps with growing the business. So I think when you're looking at the independent model, it's not as easy sometimes to grow because you're just sitting in your own space, where on the franchise model, the hub and spokes, and again, brand development, there's another piece that we have in the pie. That's something an independent person doesn't have. They don't have a brand dev person. We have 2. So now we can, drop a pin on your map and say, okay, here's your store. Here's 3 other locations that you can add into your network, and we can help you do that. With real estate, rents and landlords. And again, build out. It needs a build out, or it's an existing store. We can go and evaluate it and see what the equipment looks like. We can. So I think all of those things that you have on that level is something the independents probably struggle with a little bit, where we have all the tools in place to help you with that hub and spoke model, and we can accelerate your growth as fast as you want, or as slow as you want.
That's fascinating. For people that aren't familiar with the hub and spokes model, can you kind of dive into like how you guys even started that model, or why you guys started using that model, and like how long the timeline it kind of takes to build out like a hub and a spoke model?
Yeah. Yeah, so originally, when Lapels first started, the Lapels brand first started back in 2001. It was basically, it was like satellite stores. So a satellite store is
Okay.
just a store you come into, you drop off your clothes. There's no equipment behind the scenes, and they'll send their clothes somewhere else. And what we found is that, that's, now you're paying someone else to do the cleaning.
Mm,
And when we decided to go the hub and spoke model, now we have the hub where we build a plant now for the franchisee owner, and that plant's your plant. And now you go out and add those satellite stores.
mm,
So the plant's already there. You already have the labor and production there. Now you're just feeding in more pieces in the back door, which allows not only profitability, I think it's like 1.5 times when you add a satellite store, but you also then add more pieces for the production staff to be able to keep the staff busy.
mm.
It helps with the labor cost, overall production. So that's really how we got into the hub and spoke, was really trying to streamline the work, have control of the work. And the other piece we added in is green earth cleaning. And green earth cleaning is the world's only 100% environmentally non-toxic cleaning solution that would then added in with all the Lapels plants.
Yeah.
So that's where it kind of started. And then when it branched out, and we added more brands, we then continued that business model through the other brands.
That's really interesting. That's a lot there between like the hub and spokes model. When you have kind of the hub and the spoke, how many like employees all in do you think that would be to have both of those in one?
Yeah, so I think with the hub being like your main plant, you probably need probably 3 or 4 people just for like the production piece of it. And
Yeah.
then your counters are open anywhere from 69 to 72 hours a week. Probably need another 3 or 4 people there. So you're probably looking at 9 people, 10 people for two
Huh.
stores, one plant, and a hub. And if you add a spoke, and if you add another spoke, you'd probably need another 3 people. One good full-time person to kind of be a lead team member there to help manage the store, and then a couple part-timers to fill in the gaps.
Hmm.
So really, those spokes, adding them they're easier because there's not as much labor involved in it. Your production piece is already built and running in there, and you're adding 3 or 4 employees to
Hmm.
that space. So you asked about kind of like time frame. So, obviously to come in, if you're building a
Yeah.
new plant, obviously that takes a little bit longer. And that could be 6 months on
Hmm.
building out a new plant, depending on permitting, where it is. Or, we could look at, we've also done what we do conversions, where we actually do a conversion. We take an existing location and we then look at it, and we will evaluate the equipment, we'll evaluate the overall appearance of the store. We will then, have what we call a conversion guide. So it's
Yeah.
okay. We need the obviously signage. We need our POS system in there. And oh, by the way, we need green earth cleaning in there as well too. So we kind of go through that piece of it, and that's a lot quicker. Obviously, that's quicker. But if new store build out 6 months, a satellite store, that again. If it's conversion, it's very quickly. But even a build out on the satellite store, that's like 3 months
Hmm.
because it's not as involved as a build out. You're just looking at more of a small square footage. It could be 900 square feet. You're adding
Yeah.
encounters and some flooring and some paint, and you're up and running compared to the plant with all the equipment in.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting model, the hub and spokes model, especially for people that are trying to grow like at their own pace, especially that a lot of people want brick and mortar, but they want to hedge their risk to a
Mm-hmm.
certain extent. So I think that's really interesting. With franchising, I kind of think like you get like the operational power and then you also get like the power of the brand recognition. And I would think for a lot of like a brick and mortar operation, a lot of like the brand recognition is probably from the real estate selection and finding that location. Can you talk to me about like when you have a franchise model versus starting an independent model when you're trying to find the right location? Like, are franchise just gonna like put you in a certain location with like no idea of what the market looks like? Or like, when you start a business idea, you're just gonna start it wherever you're located compared to franchising, are they looking in your market or what kind of factors are they looking at? I know you talked about the benchmarks kind of earlier with the different financials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we definitely will. When we have, obviously, some of our conversations are driven by where the franchisee wants to open a store. But we do look at the demographics within that location. So we'll look at the population, we'll look at the dry cleaning dollars that are spent. We use SRA, which is a report out there. So we can actually see, everyone's using credit cards now. So we can see credit card dollars being spent on cleaning, which is nice, on apparel. So that is a great feature for us. So we can really hone in on not only the dry cleaning dollars, but competition in the market. We want to be cautious about fair share of the market. So we look at that because we want to place a store in a spot that they're going to be successful. If this is a new location, we really look for that location that hits all the marks, which would be convenience, has the dry cleaning dollars, fair value for competition, so to be successful. And we've had many conversations with franchisees saying, well, I know you want this zip code, but this one over here, we think would be more profitable for you. And that's something, as an independent person, you're not going to get that information. And with our team behind you, we'd be able to get you in that right direction. And not only site location, but then again, now you got to go through the landlords. And landlords, there are all different levels of landlords. And I would say I wish more were nicer than others. So now you go through landlords and property managers to negotiate, because again, you don't want to be overpriced on a store, especially on like a plant where you need like 2,000, 2,500 square feet versus a satellite store where you can do it in 500, 600 square feet. So rent factor is very different. So we have to look at that plant location, and this is something that sometimes gets missed with a lot of the independents. Is they see a great spot, I want to be there, but it's an A+ location. The rent's going to be high, and now they're putting the plant in there. You're going to spend top dollar. Where the plant location, if you're building a hub and here's another huge benefit of the hub and spoke. That plant can be like in a B+ market, and then your satellites, you can open 2 satellite stores in A+ market, 500 square feet, lower rent, capture the same business you're going to capture with a 2,000 square foot plant there, but you just bring it into a plant that has a lower rent. So that's what we look at when we look at territory. We look at that hub and spoke, like where do we want the plant? If you're going to do 2 satellites or 3 satellites or even 1, where are the best markets for those? And we go to those A+ markets with that smaller footprint to be able to drive more business to the plant.
Hey, that's strategic. That's the name of the game right there. So that's perfect.
That's right. Very strategic. Yep.
But that's really interesting between like the real estate selection, like everything's kind of like done for you. Like you already had like those standards, those benchmarks where you're not just guessing, you're going to see the opportunity. Then you're going to be able to go through a process and evaluate that opportunity and see if overall, if it does align with your goals for the future. But one of the points with like real estate selection, you brought up like the landlords. I'd be curious between the franchise model and the independent model, the advantages, disadvantages of franchises probably having some sort of national relationships or like vendors in place, whether it's actual pricing of laundry or like you said, having those landlords in place or, different connections throughout the country, whether it is those franchising connections, those marketing connections. How important are those like national relationships in a franchise model to really support those franchisees?
Yeah, no, it's very important. And we do have some great relationships with some of the larger landlords out there through the Green Earth cleaning. So Green Earth is basically, we said 100% environment friendly, non-toxic. So it's approved in a lot of these landlord spaces. So what's nice about that is that we have that relationship. So if we're going into some of the bigger strip malls, we have those relationships set up that we are Green Earth Cleaners. It might not be the actual plant there. It might be a satellite store there, but having that relationship with those landlords help. And I think the other piece that helps is that over the years, we've had a lot of conversations with some of the bigger property managements out there. So I think having that relationship with those property managers has also helped with us negotiating and finding those right places. But there's a lot of one-offs too. It's amazing how many are out there. So there's a lot of one-offs. But I think we have a template. We kind of have a process that we go through with the landlords when we're talking about the rent, and we know what we need for, a TI dollars. We know what we need for a build out. We know what we need that square footage costs to be. So that's, I think, what helps us with that selection of those properties. It really comes down to the, convenient factors. I mean, a big piece of it, the dollars there. And from there, I think, landlords are just, if we have the big player that we have the relationship with, it makes it
Yeah.
easier. But, for the most part, we have that blueprint to get through to what we need for the locations to open.
Huh. Yeah, it's really just for someone that's been in franchising, like it's very like I guess obvious the differences between like the different independent model and the franchise model. But
Hmm.
talking to, someone the other day that's literally owned the dry cleaner himself for the last 30 years and just bringing up the idea of franchising just like did not go the right way. It's just very different when you're in that world and you're not in that world. Just when you talk about those national relationships, like it just seems like you want to have those because you're just out resourced, you're out positioned, out employed, like whatever it may be, like they just have more buying power. And especially when it comes down to like a time like COVID in 2020, when, a lot of mom and pops, that's when they kind of go out of business. And I understand that was probably when Lapels and Clean Brands kind of had some sort of acquisition, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was right after COVID. I think it was in 21. Yeah, we're coming up on 3 years. Yeah, April 8th, yeah, next month. Yeah, April 6th of 21. We did acquire Martinizing,
Yeah.
cleaners, press for time, 1-800 and dry cleaning station. And I kind of remember that conversation with your dad, with Kevin, and finally when he got to the point where he was ready to kind of talk about it, and then we went out and grabbed something to eat. And he's like, I want to throw this by you. And I said, we have an opportunity to purchase the Martinizing brand. That was like the name I've really known. Martinizing, for those out there who don't know, Martinizing is the oldest dry clean franchise out there. They're celebrating 75 years this year. So it's very impressive. So when he told me we had an opportunity to purchase, yeah, right. When he told me he had an opportunity to purchase these brands, and just coming out of COVID, and it was there were brands that were kind of neglected from the past ownership. And I remember saying to Kevin, I said, this is going to be a tough couple of years to get through this, building up these brands again. He goes, yeah, I know. What do you think? I said, let's do it. It's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
And what I loved about it is that with Martinizing being third generation, there's third generation cleaners in here, second and third generations being 75 years old. So that was exciting to me. And I've met a few of those years now. But I think bringing those brands in helped us really establish, a system in place, because it was basically a rinse and repeat for us, because everything we were doing over the last, several or 20 years, basically with Lapels, and then really implementing those best practices now with Martinizing, it's been
Yeah.
eye-opening. And a lot of the a lot of the franchisees that are out there now, they didn't have a system in place. They didn't have a blueprint. It was kind of hey, here's the store. And all these stores were just conversions of other cleaners. So they were just utilizing what was there. And we've been able to really help some of those cleaners really turn their businesses around to be successful. Coming out of COVID, that was a challenge anyways, but being
Yeah.
able to then leap over that was fantastic. And in 22, we had again Martinizing franchisees, generational owners that had their best year ever in 22.
Wow.
So that was really, and I know we were only there for a year, but I think a lot of the pieces, and again, they were kind of like independent cleaners. They were kind of sitting out there on their own. They didn't have a business coach all the time. They didn't
Right.
have direction. And I think coming in and forming Clean Brands with the direction, having the business coaches, and then having those plans in place that we do. We turn on the websites, the social
Yeah.
media, the marketing, like all that turns on for you that they didn't have in the past. And then you can see the benefits of having the power of the brand behind you, and really capitalizing on that. And then, being in, I think, 45 states, that gives us some power too now with both brands in there.
Huh, that's really fascinating. And when that Clean Brands, you started to acquire the other dry cleaning brands, although like Lapels has this very, decades of experience really leading the charge, were you still like learning stuff from like the Martinizing and the other brands, and like were you merging like all the different concepts, like the best of each one, or was it like Lapels had everything together and you were just converting that to the other models, or were you like taking bits and pieces from some of the other models and like making a couple like changes with that acquisition?
Yeah, when we did look at both businesses, and we did have like an older operations guy that they had started probably right before the acquisition, maybe a few years before the acquisition, and we kind of compared it to what Lapels had, and there were some best practices there that we did
Yeah.
implement overall to both brands. And I think the delivery piece that they had, the home delivery piece. So every store also has the opportunity of doing the delivery piece outside of their stores as well. Another way to grow and keep your business going that we always will help and coach and train on that as well too. But I think, there were some pieces there. There were some other marketing pieces that they had out there that we thought was a great idea. They had a couple of systems that we did like, and we kind of merged them together. So what's nice now is that we have one Clean Brands operations guide, and that's kind of we rinse and repeat for every new franchisee coming in,
Oh,
and
wow.
what's been successful on going forward. And Martinizing really wasn't growing or selling stores for a while, so now we have Martinizing stores opening up. We have business coaches there. We
Yeah.
have the plans in place, and we have the look and feel of the stores, that they all look the same. We're not McDonald's yet, but we're going to be there someday. But it's still telling the same paint, same color counters. The
Yeah.
signage is all looking the same. The vans all look the same. So really getting that across the network has been helpful for us.
Hmm. No, that's awesome. And we've talked a lot about like franchises kind of getting started with the process. They're going to have all these benchmarks, these systems. They're going to evaluate it. Let's say they feel comfortable with everything. They've evaluated everything. They signed the franchise agreement. What do those like kind of next steps look like? It takes, a couple months to find the real estate selection. And then is there like an opening package? How does the number one question you hear is, how am I actually going to start getting customers once I get started? If someone doesn't know anything about the business, how do they start learning a lot about the business in like a short amount of time?
Yeah, it's a lot to learn, and it can be short, and yeah, it can be long depending on the time frame of location. We've had some go from like signing to like, okay, I'm opening next week, and then we have some, obviously there's a time frame there. It could be 6 months. So yeah, I think for us that clean start program that we get the franchisees into right after they sign, I think that is really in place to keep the communication open with the franchisees as they come into the system, because there are a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And it's funny, some questions go about, well, how am I going to hire staff, to how am I going to get a new customer? And
Yeah.
again, hiring new staff, okay, check, we got that. We have a national account with Hire Me. We turn that on. We have 20 templates already, job postings built for you. It's you click on the link, you sign up, and your listings are posted like the next day. So okay, we get that covered, check. So we have a lot of these pieces already to go for them where they check the box. Okay, new customers. Okay, well, we're going to build you a website. We're going to build you we're going to build you the Google page, and we're going to get social media going for you. Yep, we got that check, and we're going to start posting to it.
Yeah.
New customers, great. New store, you open your doors. And it's funny, in our industry, that new store opening, we still find like postcard mailings still work. We're
Yeah.
getting about a 1% or higher return on those postcards. And we send about 7,500 postcards. We keep it, 3 miles right around the store to really drive business in on that first day. So those are a lot of things that we do. And I think the other big piece too is that on the website, you're, Dave's Dry Clean, and you turn on your website, you're going to be on like page 52.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anything behind it. You're Dave's Dry Cleaner. But you open up as Lapels Martinizing, you have 20 plus years of SEO sitting behind you. Those stores that open on day one, they're like in the 3-pack on a search.
Yeah.
And the new franchisees are like are blown away by that. So the search engine behind that for a new store, Dry Cleaner near me, boom, you're up in the top 3. Because you have all that behind you. Again, the power of the brand, the power of having those names behind you to really draw you up to the top of the list when people are doing a search. So those are all things that we kind of keep in check, in line as we go through this process. And then all the little things that come up, like payroll. Okay, we got a payroll company. Insurance, we got an insurance company. Like all those pieces that most people would have to go out and search and do research and figure it out. We've already done that for you.
Yeah. It's incredible. I love all the points. I love how postcards are coming back as well. And just like really brings up the point where like independent versus a franchise business model, when you're doing everything yourself, there's no benchmark or numbers to look into. Like you're just trying to throw money at something, hoping to get those customers. Whereas when you talk about why should I invest a royalty? Why should I invest a franchise fee? That's because you guys have already invested probably millions of dollars making those mistakes. So that now when you're investing those marketing dollars, you're investing that royalty, it's to target people to grow your business. So the franchise owners to help them because you've already learned those systems. So I think that's just really powerful. And when you bring up the idea of postcards, like you would never know that as an independent business model. Like you just say, you know, that's long and forgotten. Maybe you try throwing a few $100s at it, you get nothing in return, then you forget about it. So it's just the power of having that benchmark and those numbers, I think, is really powerful. But in franchising, you know, there is a stigma against franchising. You know, not every franchise owner crushes it, is living, you know, the life of their dreams. There are franchises that do fail. Why do you, in your experiences, you know, you've helped a lot of people get over like those challenges, those humps. Why do you think some franchises, you know, fail? Is it more on the franchise owner? Or is it, you know, they have found the wrong brand, for example, or, you know, they're just not putting in the work and following the playbook, for example? What are your thoughts? Do you think you could be successful in any different model, or is it based upon the Z and the ZOR? What are your kind of balance on that seesaw?
Yeah, I think it goes a little both ways. I think you're only going to be as successful as the tools you get from your franchisor.
Mm,
So, we try to give as many tools as possible for the franchisee to be successful. And I think there's a lot of, I think I said in the beginning, my biggest learning curve was the franchise of the business, and there's a lot of psychology behind it. And I think as a business coach, or even myself in operations, you know, there's a lot of, just talking about, there's so many different things going on in someone's world. It's not just business world. They're dealing with their family matters. Everyone's dealing with everything that goes on in life. And
right.
sometimes you get sucked into the business. And I think, they get into a rut that they can't see beyond their store. And they're just sitting there praying that a customer will walk in the door. And sometimes it doesn't happen. So I think, we have to support them with everything we can with all our tools. And,
Yeah.
we've had those, we're not perfect. We've had those Mayday calls. And with those Mayday calls, sometimes it's myself and on a plane. And we're showing up at the front door. We're sitting down with them in their office. Well, okay, what can we do to help you get through this? What can we do to help? What's the next step in your life, in your phase? What's your end game? Do you want an
Yeah.
exit strategy? Do you want to grow? What is it that we can do to help? So I think that's something you don't get
Mm,
outside of a franchise, that support. So I think it really is both ways. You
yeah.
have to give as much as they give. And, we have to be supportive on some of the ideas that they may have, that they may want to try. And
Yeah.
I'm all about new ideas and new ways of trying different things. And if it works for a store, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. I don't always have the best ideas, but I love sharing best ideas that I hear, and best practices. So
Mm,
it is back and forth. It definitely is a two-way street. It's and then because we're always going to give 110%. So we're going to do everything we can to try to turn that store around and help. And we've had a lot of those stores turning around because over the last, before the transition on some of the older brands, they were lost. And
mm.
we've rolled up our sleeves and spent some time there to help them be successful and showing them the new best practices that can help them, grow to the next level.
That's fascinating. That was literally kind of leading into what I was thinking about as you were kind of talking about the communication between the franchisee and the franchisor and how important that dynamic is. And as you're a candidate and you're going through the process, you should be evaluating the franchisor just as much as they're evaluating you, and literally every little thing they do, how long it takes you to send back the questionnaire, whatever it may be, like they're
Yep.
tracking all those numbers, all those dynamics that we're talking about. But when we talk about like the independent model and the franchise model, some of the things is having more autonomy in an independent model, but you're kind of talking about having
Mhm.
this ongoing feedback loop. One of the things you hear from candidates is like using their own territory to kind of customize things to a certain extent. Like if you're in Austin, Nashville versus like the Midwest or Seattle or Los Angeles or Boston, like all these different markets, how open are you guys to kind of like tailoring different things to what your market, given it's not like the food industry where it is a little bit more tailored, it's dry cleaning where it's pretty similar throughout even like Dubai or China, whatever it may be. But
Yep.
are you like customizing things to their local market or open to those type of ideas at least?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we kind of have a national advertisement that goes out for 12 months. It's a 12-month schedule. It's approved by the marketing committee, and there's 5 members on there mixed between Lapels and Martinizing. We agreed to it. And one of the things they did change up is that there were certain, like they had like sweaters in the month, and we had one guy from Texas, one guy in South Carolina, and like in one in California. What doesn't line up this month? So we did kind of retool that. So we're definitely
Yeah.
open to different things like that. I think when we look at the national level on the marketing that we do, it's very generic, but local marketing within a community will help support the local franchisees on ideas and brainstorming on what they want to do in their local, whether it's an event that comes up, whether it's they want to do something, it's summertime in like Peru. I was just on the call with Peru franchisees international, and it's summer there now, and I'm not thinking summer yet. I'm still in winter mode here in Boston. So yeah, right.
Spring
So
break down in
so
Miami.
exactly, right. So I'm like not in that summer mode yet. So yeah, like a sweater promotion of them, like they're looking, or
Yeah.
comforters, like they're looking to do something else in that market because it's already hot and the temperatures a lot are higher than they were before. So
Yeah.
climate control, trying to help them. So yeah, I think locally we're always willing to help our franchisees with ideas. And again, I think I said it before, I love to spread good ideas. I
Yeah.
always don't come up with the good ideas. And I think having that community, having, I don't know, 160, 170 owners out there in the network that can share those best practices, and then we can implement that, try it at locations, and if it works, great. And we shout it from the rooftops. And I think, one of the other things we do to help with that is that, we're on a call twice a month with our franchisees. I don't know how many others out there do this, but this is something that Kevin and I started during COVID. COVID hit, the stores were closing. We were so excited, like, oh my God, we're going to stay open. Woohoo, we're essential. And then
Right.
business dropped 85% overnight. And we're like, okay, that didn't work. So we jumped on a phone and we started having daily calls. And we did daily calls every single day. Kevin and I were on the phone with our franchisees. And, long story, fast forward today, Kevin and I, so you have the CEO and the COO on a call twice a month to the entire network. So you can jump on a call with the team twice a month and ask questions. And these calls are, they'll be, basically network updates. We'll have vendors on, best practices, marketing committee, new marketing ideas. So we're constantly bringing that communication out to the franchisees as the franchisor. We need to share as much as we can.
Yeah.
And my sole job is to help them be successful.
Yeah.
And so I want to share as much as I can and help them really grow their business.
I know I have, just based off that, I have like 5 different questions to ask, and I'm looking that the hour's winding
Go.
down. But just based on what you said with like the 85% decline in COVID as like a candidate, like that's probably something that's a red flag, like an alarm. How were you guys? We've kind of mentioned like the Clean Brands acquisition, also kind of similar
Yeah.
timeline. How were franchise owners? We talked about that feedback loop between you guys and the franchise owners. What was that time like during COVID? And like, how many people were able to like get over the hump? You know, were there a lot of failed franchises during COVID, or what was that like for the franchise owner perspective? You know, the person that did make that big investment to become a franchise owner, you know, it's tough on both ends of the stick. So, you know, as people, you know, the economy, election, people are trying to hedge their risk to a certain extent. You know, how should someone like consider franchising in like these down cycles, if you will?
Yeah, well, I think there's two parts to that. One is franchising alone. I think what helps any business be better in any, when there's a downturn, just because you have the community, you have the help, you have the experts. I think in our industry, being in the dry cleaning industry, laundry industry, I think for us, it was more of, we've weathered the storm before. In 2008, we
Yeah.
weathered through that. So I think, this was a different, wasn't so much as a decline in the economy. It was more of a shutdown. And I
Yeah.
think because we helped and assisted, Kevin and I really took a hands-on approach, and really held our franchisees, our owners' hands to help them apply for PPP, apply for the ERTC credits. We had callers on, vendors on, we had best practices on. We pivot, we said, okay, well, we can't, no one's doing dry cleaning. Let's pivot and do the wash, dry, fold laundry piece of the business. And we had
Right.
training on wash, dry, fold, and we stood up a bag program. So I think all those things that we did when that happened really helped minimize some of the losses that would have been out there.
Yeah.
And I think the daily communication, I mean, daily for 3 months, just daily being there on the phone.
Mhm.
And sometimes it was just for emotional support,
Yeah.
you know, and to have that piece of it, I think was very powerful for us as we came through this. And like I said, 2021, in 21, we saw the line coming up, and I said, 22, it was like a sign of relief. And I think a lot of the owners, and we had owners that just opened businesses in 2018 and 2019, like they were brand new to the business.
Yeah.
And they're like riding high. This is great. I own my own business, and then it's cut out. But I think one of the benefits is we were able to keep our doors open. We were able to fight for business. We were able to look for opportunities. We were able to look for those little golden nuggets out there with doing something with first
Yeah.
responders, or helping with hospitals and the what, like doing those little different things. It wasn't a lot, but it was just something to keep you motivated, keep the staff going. And I think we were able to weather through that because of the network of people that we have, and the
Yeah.
support we were able to give as a franchisor, the support we were able to provide for our franchisees during that time. And I think, fast forward when, Lapels became Clean Brands, and then moving forward with Martinizing, they all saw that, and they saw the benefits of what we had done in the past to
Mhm.
what we do today. And I think that's what's powerful with the franchise, especially with Clean Brands, on what we bring to the table to support our owners.
No, yeah, I think, yeah, 100%. And one of the things I'm kind of thinking about is I always keep like saying the fact that franchising creates hundreds of millions of jobs, yet when you go to the conferences, the conventions, it's the same like few hundred people. So like one of the things when you're a candidate, you know, you don't understand like there's thousands and thousands of brands out there, but there's
Yeah,
certain people that are really leading the charge in the brands. So like having that outside perspective when you're trying to evaluate different brands, seeing how associated they are in the industry, whether, you know, going to the IFA conventions, the association you guys have with the Titus Center at Palm Beach Atlantic, you guys using, you know, the Steve Biegelman strategic
yep,
advisors in Philadelphia to even launch your business to a franchise model. Like there's so many strong connections that the brand has in the franchising industry. And, you know, one the very coolest and most unique things I think about franchise is just competitors willing to share industry secrets, willing to talk at conventions and say, you know, this worked for my brand, you know, you could try this. So I think it's just really powerful for candidates. Like the people at the top of that brand that you're evaluating really, in my opinion, need to have experience at these conventions, going to different things in the franchising world, because turning that
yep.
business to a franchise model is just a very, very different story. And Dave, I know the hours wound down. Do you have a meeting you have to go to right now? I'm sure.
No, I'm good. I'm
All right,
good.
I have one
I have
final
some time.
question for you that I feel like would be
Sure.
justice, because we spent the full hour really talking about, people considering franchising, considering business ownership, and rightfully so. The goal is to empower people to take control of their future, and business ownership is, in my opinion, one of the strongest avenues to do so. But for those
Yep.
business owners, they're providing that good or service to customers, to clients. We talked about the advantages of a franchise model for a franchise owner, but what about the customer perspective of using an independent dry cleaner versus a franchise business model? And you kind of talked about the green earth relationship. What is the difference between that customer perspective of what they're getting? And it's almost like different between the franchise owner and the business owner, what they're providing.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think for a franchise, or at least speaking for us, I think the customer experience is what it's all about. And I think any business you're going into, the bottom line is if it's retail, you're customer facing, and that's the most important person you have right there in front of you is that customer or your client. And I
Yeah.
think for us, having the experience, having the look and feel of our stores, so that boutique look, feel of the store. So when customers walk in, it's a better experience for them when they're dropping off the clothes. I think having the brand standards across the brands helps, but I think also the amount of services that we offer for each customer, not just the green earth cleaning technology, but customer the app feature, a locker feature, delivery feature, lockers, having all of that under one roof. So
Yeah.
basically, we're giving a customer one-stop shopping, and not only for dry cleaning, for laundry, household, tailoring, leather,
Yeah.
suede, shoes. If you can wear it, we can clean it for you. So
Yeah.
really, truly, the garment care experts. So I think that's what helps us attract those customers, is because it is one-stop shopping. It's a friendly place to go to. It looks nice. It feels nice. It doesn't have a strong odor. Green earth, odor-free. So I think all those experiences that we give to that customer help them choose us or come in and being able to, you get a customer for life. I always say that once the customer walks through the door, all you have to do is service them correctly. We'll do all the rest behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Because once they're in, we have retention marketing and all that other stuff that helps. So we're gonna keep that customer for you for life, and that's the goal. So I think that customer
Yeah.
experience, the one-stop shopping, you wear it, we clean it, we'll take care of you, and I think that's the big piece that we offer our customers.
No, that's awesome, Dave. And as you were talking about all the different features that Clean Brands has to offer, I have like a billion different questions off that, but our time is wound up, and that was really incredible. I know that's a really good kind of summary of franchising, having that playbook, those systems for people. And if anyone knows, at the end of the podcast, I like to just briefly summarize kind of like my big takeaways. And I know one of the things you said a couple of times, I feel like, is you love to spread positive ideas. And I think just the idea of positivity is like something you see in the franchise industry, like very, I guess, exclusively, in my opinion, compared to the other industries coming from corporate America, the finance world. Like when you go into franchising, like there's so much positivity. We talked about competitors willing to share secrets, but if you're someone that's positive, you're looking to get more fulfillment out of life. Could be franchise ownership, or it could be franchise development, or it could be franchise brokerage. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
different avenues, but I'm telling you, people in franchising are just happy people, in my opinion. Another thing that you said is having this as a franchise owner, the Zor is going to give you the tools to really be successful. And, I just had Colette Bell of Ace Handyman Services on, and I think it's a really good analogy as a franchise owner. They're not going to build the house for you, but they're going to give you the toolbox. And it's really, that's why there's top performers, middle performers, and bottom performers. It's what you make out of those tools. And you're going to have business coaches, COO, people on weekly calls with you, guiding you and supporting you. But overall in life, it's what you make out of those opportunities. You can have every tool in the toolbox, but if you don't do anything with those tools, nothing's going to happen. So I think that's a really good analogy. And I really like just having the standards, the benchmarks in a franchise model, having the real estate locations, labor, marketing, lead generation. Like you already have the numbers to back it up. Now it's just let's enact this into your local market And then you'll have that ongoing dialogue and that feedback loop as you need to adjust things going forward. So I think it's just, you get to fast track the process to success, in my opinion, leading off the founders, the CEOs, the COOs that have invested millions of dollars to make the mistakes. And now you can take that system and replicate it in your market, and then use something like a hub and spokes business model that Clean Brands offers in a very needs-based service that weathers through the different economies, or even a time when the government just shuts everything down. You know, people just have that time to take control of their future. It's just what you make of it. And if you have the mindset, and then it's followed by taking massive action. So Dave, I appreciate you on, we went full 60 plus minutes at this point. So I appreciate you jumping on, sharing your insights, your experiences. I had a lot of fun, and I think the viewers are going to gain a lot of insights from this one.
Good. I hope glad to help. And Josh, pleasure. Thank you again for having this. I couldn't have summed that up than you did. So nice summary on that, Carl. So hopefully it helps a few people out there. And yeah, I think staying positive and excited is what it's all about.
Awesome. Dave, hopefully I'll see you in person soon.
Sounds good, Josh. Take care.